There you see the story of the Assyrian army attacking this large city in Judah, well fortified, up on its hill, strong walls, and the Assyrians build a siege ramp, the remains of which can still be seen today. And up this siege ramp they move their machinery, their rams, their soldiers, their archers, their slingers, all of them attacking the city.
A Assíria era a maior potência militar na região até a chegada dos romanos. Seu exército era especialista em cercos e as armas utilizadas eram as mais modernas na época.
The Assyrian siege machines resembled very much the modern tank. They were actually rolling on very large wheels. The machine had very large boom or beam with a metal tip, and it also had a turret which had a very interesting function. It had people standing there with buckets of water, and as the people on the walls were throwing burning oil or burning torches on the boom of the ramp, trying to set it on fire, the people on the turret would pour water on that fire to extinguish it.
As fortificações aumentavam as chances de sobrevivência de uma cidade, mas um serviço civil era igualmente importante: a água.
Most water sources for cities are outside of the cities. If your city is under attack or under siege, is how do you get to your water? If you can't get to your water, then you need to surrender.
If they were anticipating a siege, they would dig to the bedrock in the direction of the source of water from inside the city. They would tunnel into the spring, have an access to the water from inside the city, and then when the enemy get near the city, they would block off the water source on the surface to prevent the enemy from having an access to the supply of water.
Mas, às vezes, esses túneis de água eram utilizados contra os defensores da cidade.
We have a great example of that in the book of 2 Kings with David capturing Jerusalem. The Jerusalem water source is outside of the city walls, called the Gihon Spring. And the Jebusites, or the people of Jerusalem, were taunting David that you couldn't capture that city. And he commanded Joab to go up through the water shaft and to capture the city of Jerusalem.
2 séculos depois, o rei Ezequias aperfeiçoou o sistema de água de Jerusalém para melhor proteger a cidade do exército assírio. O túnel de Ezequias tem mais de 500 metros de extensão e é uma das maravilhas da engenharia da Bíblia. A água era um bem precioso na terra sagrada e as cidades a defendiam até a morte. Ela dava vida, mas em um épico da Bíblia, ela tirou vidas, logo depois que um homem de Deus levou 2 espécimes de cada animal em sua famosa arca. Eles são os maiores cargueiros da terra. Totalmente carregadas, embarcações marítimas são capazes de transportar 500.000 toneladas. Essa capacidade é reconhecida na Bíblia. A história da Arca de Noé celebra um dos maiores navios da história.
Então disse Deus a Noé: o fim de toda a carne é vindo perante a minha face, porque a terra está cheia de violência, e eis que os desfarei com a terra.
Noé foi instruído a construir um grande navio de madeira e a coletar um par de cada espécie animal na terra. Quando Deus inundou a terra, a arca e seus habitantes sobreviveram e repovoaram o mundo. Mas seria esse apenas um conto cativante? Em décadas recentes, a arqueologia submarina no Mar Negro vem tentando dar embasamento a essa história. No livro O Dilúvio de Noé, William Ryan e Walter Pittman afirmam que há 7.000 anos, o derretimento de geleiras causou um enorme fluxo de água salgada do Mediterrâneo para o Mar Negro, que na época tinha água doce. Amostras recolhidas na costa provam uma mudança repentina na vida animal, de água doce para água salgada. Mas esta é apenas uma de várias teorias de inundações.
I'm not convinced that the flooding of the Black Sea was the event that's recorded in the Bible as being Noah's flood. One of the things that we know as anthropologists is that most cultures in the world actually do have a flood myth where the world is destroyed by water, where the world is covered in water.
Da Arca de Noé, passando pelas inundações de Gilgamesh e às lendas gregas, romanas e irlandesas, a crença do dilúvio é rica em popularidade, mas pobre em evidências. O mesmo acontece com a Arca. Apesar das inúmeras falsas localizações ao longo dos anos, a compreensão da construção da lendária embarcação passa obrigatoriamente por técnicas conhecidas de construção de navios.
So how would this boat have been built? Ancient boat technology is different than the way we build boats today. Today we build boats in a way that's called frame first or skeleton first. We lay down the keel and then we put up the frames or the ribs of the boat, and it looks kind of like a skeleton, and then we put the planks on the outside. We build from the inside out. But in the ancient world, just about everywhere, every culture that we examine the remains of early boats, they built from the outside in. They built the shell of the boat or the hull first.
Navios devem resistir a vazamentos, por isso, os construtores bíblicos criaram uma tecnologia sofisticada para unir as placas de madeira. Um dos métodos mais confiáveis era o do macho e fêmea.
When we look at a mortise and tenon fastening, we're talking about a tenon, which is a free piece of wood, and slots that are cut in the edge of a plank. In this case, this is just a simple model for demonstration. And the mortise just fits in here, halfway, and then you put it in one that's on the opposite side. And then you fit the upper plank onto it. You have to hit it really hard in a real case to get it to fit, and then you have this nice smooth plank seam that you can subsequently put pegs through to hold the tenon in place. And this is the way people built boats for at least 4,000 years. We have evidence of that in the Mediterranean and in the Nile area, because this is the area where the Bible is set, where its geography is, it's very likely that Noah's Ark would have had the same kind of technology.
Para suportar o peso de todos os passageiros, a arca deveria ter sido uma embarcação de proporções gigantescas.
E desta maneira a farás. De 300 côvados o comprimento da arca, e de 50 côvados a sua largura, e de 30 côvados a sua altura. Um côvado é a unidade de medida bíblica determinada pela distância da ponta do dedo médio até o cotovelo. Como cada côvado tem 66 centímetros, a Arca de Noé mediria 198 metros de comprimento, 33 metros de largura e 20 metros de altura. É uma embarcação enorme, mas possui precedentes históricos.
There are some historical references to ships that are described as being 500 feet long. One of the things that we know the Egyptians did was to transport obelisks on wooden boats. And the pharaoh Hatshepsut, who was the queen, described about 3,500 years ago the boat that she had built. And the boat that she built to carry 2 obelisks is one that would carry a 747 loaded with 40 elephants. These are our first super freighters that we hear about from other sources than the Bible.
Um homem decidiu pôr em prática as coordenadas dadas por Deus. Joseph Silver era engenheiro na Pensilvânia e se dedicava à arca no tempo livre. Durante quase 30 anos, ele fez um estudo da viabilidade da arca, abordando todos os aspectos, da arquitetura e física marinha, à química e zoologia. Mas Silver morreu em 1995 e o manuscrito foi quase esquecido. Pouco após sua morte, amigos e parentes começaram a reunir suas anotações e, em 2000, enviaram o material a Ed Shearer, proprietário de uma empresa de engenharia naval.
I decided to take it up and figured I'd spend 5 minutes on it, shoot a bunch of holes in it, and send it back to the gentleman. After several hours later, I was very involved in it, looking up requirements and standards from the United States Coast Guard, from the American Bureau of Shipping, from the International Maritime Organization, these type organizations, to try to refute what Mr. Silver had come up with, and basically his concept of the Ark fit all of the requirements.
A Arca de Silver estaria entre as maiores embarcações já construídas.
The rule of thumb is that ocean-going barges have basically a length-to-depth ratio of about 15:1 or less. The Ark actually met that criteria at being about 40 feet deep to the, as we call it, the strength deck on the Ark, with the 627 feet long.
Silver criou um modelo da arca com um software muito usado pela Marinha e pela Guarda Costeira para análises de engenharia.
We determined that the Ark had basically adequate stability to encounter waves of various